very exciting, and I'm thrilled to announce that at my direction, the United States Air Force is moving forward with the world's first sixth-generation fighter jet. Number six, sixth generation. Nothing in the world comes even close to it, and it'll be known as the F-47. The generals picked a title, and it's a beautiful number, F-47. It's something the likes of which nobody has seen before in terms of all of the attributes of a fighter jet. There's never been anything even close to it, from speed to maneuverability to what it can have to payload. And this has been in the works for a long period of time. After a rigorous and thorough competition between some of America's top aerospace companies, the Air Force is going to be awarding the contract for the next generation air dominance platform to Boeing. As you know, it was highly competed for. There was a lot of competition, generals, and it's been going on for a long time. Very, very tough competition, but this plane is produced numbers that nobody's ever seen before. The F-47 will be the most advanced, most capable, most lethal aircraft ever built. An experimental version of the plane has secretly been flying for almost 5 years, and we're confident that it massively overpowers the capabilities of any other nation. There's no other nation. We know every other plane. I've seen every one of them, and it's not even close. This is a next level. You know, level 5 is good. This is level 6, they say. The F-47 is equipped with state-of-the-art stealth technology. It's virtually unseeable and unprecedented power. It's got the most power of any jet of its kind ever made.
You know, we have seen end of last year, the Chinese flying their sixth generation aircraft. They just showcased them in an air show, 2 of them. But the Americans have been working much earlier. They have reportedly flown the sixth generation aircraft close to 4 years back. And the attributes of a sixth generation aircraft, primarily, they have all the attributes of a fifth generation aircraft, but at a much higher capability and capacity. I'll give you an example. It has to be, of course, stealth. Its engines have to be super. It can be able to do super cruise. That means the aircraft will, in dry power, will be able to maintain a supersonic flight. It will have system of systems approach. It will be able to have man-unmanned teaming. That means a loyal wingman, a swarm drone could be flying along with this aircraft and carrying out a large number of tasks together. So they have to be, it'll more or less act like a flying, command post, if I may use the word. It will have advanced sensors, it will have artificial intelligence, it will have data fusion, and it will be able to, have a much better situational awareness of the battlefield and be able to carry out, large amount of dominate the battle space, if I may use the word. Another thing that it'll have a great electric power source, which will allow it to have directed energy weapons, which will be something new. So clearly, sixth generation aircraft are meant to dominate the airspace. Of course, there'll be large number of other technologies, the quality of radar, the quality of electronic warfare suite, the quality of avionics. They all will be of a very, very high standard, yes. Tell you that for it to have a higher quality of stealth, first it must have a better stealth paints, easy to maintain stealth paints. Its shape must be such to have lesser protruding surfaces. The wing and the body must blend in such a way that there will be very few radar reflections. The engines and the tail exhausts of the engine will be designed in such a way that both the intakes and the tail do not leave behind radar signature or the thermal signature of any very significant kind. The aircraft should be able to maneuver, should have large space to carry a large number of long-range weapons. So there are many, many features. He has said, President Trump has said that it will be much, much better than the F-35 and F-22. It will initially about 200 aircraft are planned to be bought, but the numbers could go up. They said that they will have a special version which will be for the US Air Force, but they will also have a variant which they will be happily willing to sell to their other allies, Europeans, Japanese, and others. Of course, some of the aspects of the aircraft that the US Air Force will get may not be there. So when President Trump says, for some years, we all have, analysts have studied the types of technologies that are going to come on board. This is the first time we know that the Europeans are running two separate programs, the GCAP and FCAS, Future Combat Aircraft System, in two separate consortiums. People are asking that if this is going to be the mother of all aircraft, future fighter aircraft, this is going to be the finest, the best, as President Trump has said. People are wondering what will happen to the European programs. Will they sort of merge? Will they, also choose to take some technologies from Americans? All this, I think, is going to evolve. Yes. Yeah, so, as per the contract document that has, been said that the first phase will be a small number of test aircraft for evaluation, which the US Air Force will evaluate, because right now the aircraft has been evaluated by the US Air Force to have been able to select. So initially will be a low rate of production. The same they followed when they selected the B-21 bomber, the Raider. But the target is to have the first aircraft induct into the US Air Force in 2029. This is the kind of timelines. That means 4 years from now, they want it to be inducted. Yes. Yeah, so, firstly, I must tell you, for a Boeing company, for the Boeing company, it's a big win. For long, Lockheed Martin has dominated, whether it was the F-22, the F-16, the, F-35, but the major chunk of the fighter aircraft of the US Air Force and of the world, if I may use the word, have been, of the Lockheed Martin company. The Boeing used to have the F-15 Eagle, the F-A-18 fighters, but their numbers were relatively much, much lesser than what the Lockheed was supplying. So there has been a big revival for Boeing company. We all know that Boeing has been suffering in the airliners, the MAX 737 MAX airliner crashes. They've had a workers' strike. So there have been many issues as far as the Boeing is concerned. So this has brought, in fact, the Boeing shares went up by close to 7% the day this announcement was made. And at the same time, Lockheed Martin shares went down by 5.7%. Now, let us look at the, costs. Of course, the actual costs will come out as we, go along. But what we are being told is that it will be, of course, there are statements being made that it will be very close to the F-35, but we all know that F-35, which costs anywhere between 85 to 110 million dollars, because that's depending on the types of variants we are talking about. The initial money that has been given out till now has been 1.66 billion dollars. But the program has already been committed $11.7 billion, which will be spent between now and 2027. And the projected figure, as I said, is around 200 aircraft. So the cost will be much cheaper than F-22, which costs close to $330 million. If the aircraft finally costs around 110 to 115 million dollars, I think it will be a good bet. It will be a good achievement. Yes. No. This is too far away. These are, dream situations you are talking about. We are not even, they are not yet. Trump has just made a generic statement when Prime Minister Modi was in the US recently. that we will offer you F-35. No such offer has actually been made till now to the government of India. The Indian Air Force has not yet even had a look at that aircraft, and that's a 5th generation aircraft. You all know that as Indian Air Force is looking for 114 MRFA aircraft, which are 4.5 generation. On offer is the F-16 equivalent, F-21 and F-18 and the F-15. These are what on offer. The Americans would prefer us to get into the fighter ecosystem with 4.5 generation. They are not even, at best, they may offer you F-35, through some back channel routes, but the 6th generation aircraft is too far away. It will actually be available to the world only around 2040 for the rest of the Air Forces. First, they'll build some numbers for US Air Force. So I think we should not even be thinking about it. Yeah. Yeah, China has, flown those 2 aeroplanes. Interestingly, one of them doesn't even have vertical tail fins, which means it's very interesting that the entire directional control will be managed by other control surfaces and thrust vectoring 3D engines. Yes, the Chinese are pushing ahead, but the Chinese are masters at reverse engineering. They have done what they did to the Russians by copying Su-27 and making many variants out of it. And some of the variants, in fact, have become better than the original aircraft but you remember the Chinese are still dependent on the Russian engines. The Russian engines are much better, though the Chinese have reverse engineered those also, but they're still not so great at it. So yes, they will try to, but we know that in the recent past, especially ever since President Trump has come, they have tried to be very tight on their cyber as well as the Chinese diaspora, so that they do not try to steal the hard-earned intellectual property right that the Americans have created after a lot of R&D and a lot of money spent. Yes.